I don't know when in history the first piece of writing was created, but I can tell you with absolute certainty when the first critique happened. Immediately after the first piece of writing was created. If you really want to improve as a writer, you need to get your writing critiqued, which is a scary process for many reasons. Having someone read something you've written specifically to tell you all the problems with it brings with it all sorts of pain and suffering. But there are some things you can do to alleviate some of that suffering, which is what we're going to talk about today. Every writer needs to be able to handle criticism, and I've got some advice here today to help you do that. All right, the first thing that will help improve your ability to get critique is to get a lot of critique. Doing this will help in a few ways. First off, you'll probably build up a bit of a criticism callus. As you have more and more people read your writing, you'll hopefully get more comfortable and it will become a bit more routine. It won't be as new and scary. There's a counter argument to this that the more critique you get might make you more sensitive to it, but I think for most people, more exposure to critique through time will help make it feel a little less scary. Another thing that getting a lot of critique will do is it will allow you to work with a lot of different critique partners. Like anything else, the quality of a critique partner is going to vary depending on who you work with. You'll have some people who are harsh a-holes, some people who are nice, some people who are good at critique and give you actual good feedback, and some people who aren't good at critique and don't give you any valuable feedback. The bigger your sample size, the more people you get critique from, then the more likely it is that you'll work with somebody good. If you've only ever gotten criticism from one person and that person is a jerk who doesn't give you any insightful feedback, then you're obviously going to have a bad experience with the whole process. Working with a lot of critique partners will also help you discover what it is you like and are looking for in a critique partner. Some writers like a gentle critique partner, others prefer a harsher, more straightforward one who will give them a kick in the ass when they need it. As long as your critique partner identifies the issues in your work and helps you address them, then they are a good critique partner no matter what their style is, as long as that style jives with what you want and what you prefer. It's also important to remember that one critique is just one opinion and may not give you an accurate picture of the work compared to a larger number of critiques, which again is a good reason to get as much critique as you can from as many different people as you can. Next piece of advice I have for you is to try to separate yourself from the work. This is more of a mindset shift rather than a shift in how the critique actually happens, but I think it can still help quite a bit. There's a difference between I'm a bad writer and I wrote a bad chapter that people don't like. The more you reframe critique as a reflection of the quality of a specific piece of work versus an assessment of you as a writer, the better off you'll be. The best writers are capable of having an off day. They can produce a chapter that isn't good, isn't clear, or just doesn't work. It's not a reflection of their total potential as a writer. It's just a reflection that they made a bad piece of work. While there is a strong correlation between your overall skill and the quality of the work that you produce, you have to decouple these two things. Stop thinking in terms of my writing needs to improve and more in terms of this novel needs to be improved. If you turn your focus to the work and make that as good as possible, then your skills will naturally improve as a byproduct. Closely related to this is the avoidance of what I'm going to call criticism defense tactics. These are strategies that you or someone else uses when they get a critique they don't like. Usually because it's negative, and instead of accepting and working through the feedback, you deploy all kinds of defensive tactics to defend yourself and the work. This can include lashing out at your critique partner, attacking them in some way. It can include trying to devalue their skill or attempting to convince yourself that they don't know what they're talking about and that they don't recognize your literary brilliance. Anything that takes attention away from the potentially legitimate flaws of the work that have been pointed out and moves it towards the person who pointed out those flaws. This is why a lot of in-person writing groups don't allow the person who's receiving the critique to respond to it in any way. They're not allowed to defend the writing after they hear what other people have to say about it. They can thank the person and whatever, but they aren't allowed to defend the work. The reason that a lot of groups do this is because the work needs to stand on its own. The writer can't be there to defend it. It also obviously avoids some potential drama if somebody reacts negatively to a critique, so that's also a reason a lot of groups do that. Even if you don't lash out at your critique partner, try to catch when your mind dismisses a piece of critique. Every piece of feedback you get should be evaluated in a serious way. Some of it you may choose to ignore, but you should do that because the feedback isn't good, not because it bruises your ego. Closely related to this is understanding what you want to get out of critique and communicating this with whoever's doing the critique. You have some amount of responsibility for the kind of critiques you get, and it is your responsibility to communicate this as much as possible. Your partner can only do the things that you ask for, and if you don't ask for anything, then they're just gonna do whatever, and that may not be what you want. If you want help with developmental stuff like character and plot, but the person doing your critique only focuses on like sentence structure and prose flow, then you're not going to be happy. Proper communication can avoid these situations. Now, there's a chance that your critique partner will just ignore you and critique whatever parts of the work that they want to critique, which might be a sign that they aren't a great critique partner. And there's also the chance that if you are looking for developmental stuff, but your prose is too messy, your critique partner might not be able to assess the deeper stuff like plot and character. But that's still good feedback, and they should make that clear to you. Critiquing, I think, sometimes is treated as a one-way relationship when it's really a two-way relationship. The person doing the critique is making an investment in the writer that they are critiquing. They are taking some amount of responsibility because theoretically this person is going to make adjustments to their work based on what the critiquer says should be adjusted. Whether you like it or not, anytime you do critique for somebody, you are taking some amount of responsibility for the direction that the work goes and the direction that that person's development as a writer goes. If you're receiving critique, I think it's important to recognize that the other person is taking time away from working on their own projects in order to help you improve your project, and you should display some amount of gratitude for that. The reason you're getting critique is to improve, and you can't improve without knowing where the flaws are. The purpose of critique is not encouragement, though I think working with a good critique partner should ultimately be encouraging. Critique is tough. There's a lot of negativity, a lot of emotion involved. You're putting a piece of work that you've potentially put hundreds of hours into out there for people to begin looking at. It can be a very difficult experience. But if you stick with it, you'll start to see some light shining through. The first time that someone connects with your work, even if it's just a sentence or two of it, is an amazing feeling. When a person even just a little bit starts to feel the same things that you feel about the novel, it's really rewarding. It's like a tiny drop of authorial greatness that we are all striving for. But you'll never feel that if you don't get critique. The rewards for overcoming the pain and suffering and the difficulty and all of the emotions involved with critique are definitely worth it, so I would encourage you to do that. And hopefully the advice that I've given you in this video will help at least a little bit. So there you have it. I would love to hear your criticisms of this video in the comments down below, I guess. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.